Hello, you're very welcome to this latest episode of Audiovisual Cultures, the podcast that explores different areas of film, media, the arts and culture. With me, Paula Blair. I am so excited today to introduce you to Nicole Matarese. Nicole works, as you'll hear, across lots of different areas. Mainly at the moment, Nicole is an independent podcaster, a bit like myself. Nicole's also been involved in acting, including film acting, and has a background in some stage work as well, and producing and writing. So there's really quite a lot of different areas to get into with Nicole. We spend quite a bit of time talking about the podcasts that she works on as well. Really excited to introduce you to Nicole. She's pretty great. As ever, a huge thank you to all of you out there listening and everybody engaging on social media. Our Instagram's creeping up all the time. Our followers are creeping up all the time, and it's brilliant to see. It's lovely to have more and more people on board all the time. So recording this early January, and I realised in late December that we had fallen off Apple, and I have no idea how that happened, but I have fixed the problem. We're back on Apple. I think that possibly that's why a lot of our listening numbers dropped a while ago. I don't know how long this has been a problem for. Nobody tells me anything. You need to tell us stuff because we don't know this. It has been rectified. We're on Apple Podcasts again. Don't know what happened. Apologies for that. I am apologising for something that couldn't possibly have been my fault because I didn't change anything. I didn't do anything, and it was still feeding. Strangely, it was still feeding all of the podcast apps that are fed from Apple. So I don't really understand what happened there. But we're back. We're up and running. It should all be fine again. We are searchable and findable on Apple. So get subscribing, and please leave us a really lovely review if you can, and give us 5 stars. If you're not interested in giving us 4 or 5 stars, I'm not really interested in you leaving that review, so just keep it to yourself. So back fighting fit, got quite burnt out there in December, wasn't very well for a bit in December, fighting fit again in January. This is coming out in February, so hopefully that this energy will just keep us going through the cold, dark winter here in the northeast of England. And once again though, I'm in sunny California speaking with Nicole. So it's great to see that. And if you want to see that, join our behind the scenes tier on patreon.com/AV Cultures. The behind the scenes patrons we already have the privilege of seeing the videos. Whenever my guests consent to this, they have the privilege of seeing the video recordings of these episodes, and they get that released to them a good few days before the actual audio edit comes out. So if that's something you would like to see, if you would like to see our lovely faces, especially all these guests I'm having who are based out in California, if you'd like to see their sunny glowy faces and me illuminated pale in the dark corner of this room in the winter, then head on over to our Patreon and join that tier. If you're in the UK, it's £5 a month, and it's something else in the other currencies, but it's £5 a month or equivalent, and you get quite a lot actually for that, and it really helps us out quite a bit, because if anybody's been following, you might have noticed I really made a push over the winter to get more transcripts out there. At the minute, it's the automated transcripts that have come from either YouTube or from Acast. So they are anything but perfect. And it would be great to have some funding to be able to pay me to go through them so that I get something for that time, because it's really time consuming going through them and making sure everything's correct and hyperlinking things and that sort of stuff. So at the minute, even just making sure the transcript is there, it's a bit extra from what I'm doing, but I'm hoping that learning better recording techniques and using better tech. This is my first time using Zencastr, and I think you will really notice the difference from Zoom, because I was getting tired of me and my guest having really good microphones and it's still sounding really rough and tinny and scratchy and horrible because of the Zoom lag. Zencastr solves all those problems, and it's so crisp and clear, and I just wish I'd heard about it sooner, but I'm so grateful that I found it now, and I think they're doing amazing work in the world and everybody needs to know about them. So that's Zencaster, and I'm going to link this and so much more in the show notes. But look, for now I've rambled at you enough. Really enjoy this chat with Nicole. She's an absolute delight, and she's working on some really lovely things, and she seems to be just a really great person as well. So really enjoy this one, and thanks for sticking with us. Nicole Matarese, it's such a joy to have you on Audiovisual Cultures today. A very, very warm welcome.
Thank you. It's really wonderful to be here. I really appreciate it, Paula. Thank you.
I'm really pleased you got in touch. Nicole, you work across a lot of different areas, and we'll chat about lots of different things. We'll see what we meander into. But first of all, would you please tell us where you are and how you're doing today?
Yes, I am currently in Central California. A lot of people refer to it as the Central Valley. So 3 hours north of Los Angeles and 3 hours south of San Francisco. And how I'm feeling today is really good and optimistic, which is nice, to wake up. It's pretty early where I am. It's 10:30. I woke up at about 7 something feeling refreshed, which is, I'm not a morning person. So that was a nice feeling for me to be like, why am I in a good mood today? I'll take it. First thing in the morning. I'll take it. It was before I had my coffee too, which usually I need to wait until then. But so far, feeling very optimistic today.
Awesome. That's really great to hear. Yes, it's just got, well, not just, it's been dark here for a couple of hours. We're in the evening here in the UK. It's so nice to be able to do these transatlantic recordings, I think, and the timings are odd, but they work out. But it's nice for me to see nice sunny faces.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's great. So I could ask you, it's almost like time traveling. How has the day been so far? So it's the evening for you. The day's, nearing an end. Has it been a good day?
It's been all right. Yeah, I've been pootering about, I've been working on stuff, been planning this recording. I've been writing my questions for you and listening to your podcasts this morning. And then I was working on a job application because we all need one of those. And Some stuff came in the post. So that was exciting. I had things to play with from the post. So yeah, just a very banal day. But I've been really looking forward to having this chat with you. It's been really nice to vicariously get to know you a tiny bit through listening to some of your podcasts.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate, any and all listens. It doesn't matter how big the audience is. It's just, if people are listening, I appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, well, I've been enjoying it. So we will talk about your podcasts each in detail in a bit, but I was just wondering if you'd be happy as well to give us a bit of an overview on all the things you do, because you do some acting as well. You've done some producing work and I think a bit of writing I read somewhere as well. And would you be happy to just lay some of that out for us? And, how would you describe yourself?
Absolutely. And I'm happy to kind of start from the beginning because it is kind of a long story. And I do, I am kind of a jack of all trades. I like to think I'm a master of some, but I wouldn't, but I'm humble, so I don't know. But I do a lot. I'll start from the beginning. I was born in Long Island, New York. And for people who are unfamiliar, because I moved to the West Coast and realized people are unfamiliar with Long Island, there is literally an island just kind of jutting out of New York. And I'm from that region of America, the United States of America. Went to high school there, went to college in upstate New York on Lake Ontario, and studied broadcasting and creative writing. I always enjoyed writing and acting, and in college, I really dove more so into that. I took script writing classes, absolutely loved it, realized I wanted to write a movie one day, and that I just enjoyed dialogue. Much like me talking to you, Paula, I enjoy making my characters talk to each other as well, and I realized that's something I enjoy. Yeah, acted in student films and student plays, and really built up a resume, which was really nice. Jump forward a few years later, I graduated college and moved to Brooklyn, New York, which is a borough in New York City, and looked back on my resume of student films, student plays, and realized I had a resume. At the time when I was working on all that stuff back in college, I think I was just like, this is just for fun. Like, this is for me, which it still is, but no one's really going to care about this in the future. And I couldn't have been more wrong. I made a resume, an acting resume, a writing resume of stuff that I worked on, and applied for sketch comedy teams. And I was on a sketch comedy house team at the People's Improv Theater in New York, where I performed on stage. I wrote, imagine like an SNL, but lower budget, live on stage at a theater. This was when theater spaces were open. So got into that more so in New York, kept at it with being in my friends' web series and films and projects. From there, got the opportunity to be in a Trauma movie, which is the longest running independent film company. That was a really big move, being in, a feature-length movie. I had a couple lines. I had a small part, but I had a good part. And then got the confidence and the resume to move to Los Angeles. My fiance, who at the time was my boyfriend, was here. I moved to Los Angeles, was acting, writing. I should rewind. In New York, I also produced my own comedy shows. Part of me. I ended up producing some sketch comedy shows, an improv show, and ended up writing, producing, directing, and acting in a play. Then I got the confidence to move to Los Angeles and be like, okay, I could follow my Hollywood, dream that I've had since I was little. I got the resume, the reel, all that stuff. I'm going to go. I'm happy I jumped into it when I did, because little did I know that things would shut down in an unprecedented time, just a few months into me living there, and things weren't happening the way they had. So I really did jump in. I was just kind of getting background work, but I was happy to be there. And I did have some acting work. I did some voice acting while I was there, and was in Los Angeles for a little under 2 years. During then, I had produced a couple web series just right from my home, which was very nice, remote, with my friends also being remote. We filmed in our apartments, separately across the country. And then the time came where I realized, I could still be passionate about independent film and be in my apartment, and I didn't have to be in quote unquote Hollywood to produce. I began the podcast and realized again, I could be sitting in a room anywhere in the world and make this stuff. I don't have to be in a particular location. So that's what led me to where I am today. I do have 2 podcasts. I host Totally Toonular, which is the one that began in 2021, early 2021, I should say. I co-host it with my friends. We talk about a new animated show every week. And just towards the end of 2021, I began my own podcast called Totally Recommend This Dude. I realized that I wanted to talk to people about podcasts and just kind of wanted to talk people's ear off about it, to be honest. And I was like, you know what? Like, I should record myself, talking about the podcast that I enjoy. So that's where I am today. Kind of nice that people could just connect anywhere in the world now. As long as you have a microphone, a webcam, you're good to go. So that's where I am now.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Nicole. I totally echo those sentiments. I've really so enjoyed, even before the pandemic, connecting with people through podcasting. But the pandemic, strangely, for this podcast was a real blessing, because I get to meet people like you who are so far away from me. You're basically on the other side of the world, and yet we're having this chat live, and other people are going to get to hopefully benefit from that. That I think that's a really special thing that we can do now.
I agree. And I have to say, I I applaud you so much for being in the podcast game prior to the pandemic. I started a podcast in, I think it was 2019. And I mean, it's okay. It was a good practice round. It just it was overly ambitious, I think. I wanted to write 200 words a day and talk about it on a podcast, which that's a great idea. I just couldn't keep up with it. I became too busy. But being in lockdown really helped me be like, I do like podcasting, and now I'm in a space where I can really do it consistently. And I agree. I don't know if even prior to the pandemic, if I would have thought of networking with people all over the world. It really did kind of bring us all together in it's odd, because as isolated as we all are, we're coming together in other ways, which is a blessing. As you said, it's a silver lining to everything.
I think so, yeah. So I suppose because we were on that already, then it'd be nice to have a bit more of a closer look at each of those podcasts that you are working on currently. So I really love the idea of Totally Recommend This Dude. So that's where you're recommending podcasts that you really like. So you talk for maybe about 15 minutes or so about a podcast that you're listening to and you're really interested in, and you're maybe learning a lot from. And it's really lovely to hear those experiences. You know, I'm somebody who listens very widely to podcasts as well, and you're always, you know, open to hearing about ones you've never heard of yet, you know, so I particularly like that about it. And it's something I do in the email newsletters I do with this podcast. It's a monthly newsletter, and I have a little spot in it where I recommend something I've been listening to. So I felt a real affinity with you making that. Would you like to, I suppose, get into just a bit more detail then about that, and maybe highlight a few ones if you would like to, about what you're listening to and why you want to share that so much with people and those sorts of things?
Absolutely. And I just want to start off by saying I'm going to subscribe to your email newsletter, and I want to know what you're listening to. That's so cool that you do something similar. That's great. Yeah, I would love to talk about it more. You know, I made a Twitter page for Fantasy Shed, which is the production company that hosts Totally Toonular, right? That was the first podcast I really got my footing in. And I saw a lot of people particularly tweeting, anyone have podcast recommendations? That's one I see very frequently, right? Like whether it's, you know, there's some theories that there's bots, and but you know what? I saw it frequently enough. I'm like, okay, statistically, there have to be people really looking for podcasts, right? And I realized that there was a brief time where I was commuting, believe it or not, in 2021, where things kind of seemed like they were getting back to the way they were prior to 2020. And I found myself reaching out to friends and asking more. So, you know, I'm walking to work, I'm commuting by bus to work. I need a good podcast to listen to. And they would recommend something to me, and then I would want to recommend something to someone else. But sometimes I send big blocks of text message to my friends, and, you know, everyone's getting recommendations for so much content these days that I kind of felt bad. I didn't want to spam them, I guess. And so between seeing that on Twitter and listening and being like reawakened to areas I could listen to podcasts, I decided to begin my own podcast talking about it, and talking about what I want to have a healthy balance of promoting my friends' podcasts and promoting podcasts by people I don't know. Figure it's just a good way to promote independent art, etc. So that was the idea behind Totally Recommend This Dude. Some of the podcasts I would like to recommend on here. And you hit the nail on the head too, Paula, that there's a lot of learning that can be had from podcasts. And there are two in particular that I just recently released that I think do exactly that. They kind of change the way you think, or open your mind to the way you think. I don't know if you have listened to The Shrink Next Door, the podcast. If you like true crime, which I know it's like some people are really gung-ho about true crime stories. Some people are really like, that's not my thing. And, you know, either way, I respect it. The Shrink Next Door opened my eyes to what a true crime story could be, because it's a little bit ambiguous. I don't want to spoil too much because I, you know, if you want to listen to it, I don't want to ruin the story for you. But that one changed the way and opened my mind to like what a true crime story could be. So that one I spoke about on my podcast. And just recently, I dropped an episode about a podcast that I actually was watching because they upload to YouTube too. I was watching before I spoke with you. It's called The Trillionaire Mindset. And that one opened my mind and changed the way I think about finance, money, NFTs, stocks. As a creative, I always thought that was a world that was not for me, which was narrow-minded, but I did think that it was for the buttoned-up Manhattan Wall Street, you know, stock guys, and not for the everyman. So that podcast, The Trillionaire Mindset, opened my eyes. Like, okay, no, this is for the every person. So those are two that I would really recommend to people. I listened to the entirety of that one you just mentioned, the Trillionaire Mindset, and it's just nice to hear what you're getting out of it. And I think that's probably what's missing, because similar to you get bombarded. I think if you're a podcast on Twitter, you get, you and all your podcast buddies, you get all inundated with any podcast recs, and just a million people just jumping on it going, listen to me, listen to me, listen to me.
Yeah, and then there are things like Good Pods that have sprung up that go like, we're basically your one-stop shop for that. We're basically Goodreads, but for podcasts and stuff. I think hearing somebody talk about it, and it's a nice format where it's quite an everyday thing. And I think that's how most of us are listening. It's while we're just doing stuff around the house, for example, or commuting or whatever, we're doing something else usually while we're listening to a podcast. So I really got that sense from listening to your episodes, because I get those sort of eureka moments where you're listening to something and go, oh, I don't have to live my life that way. I can do it this way and try that. Yeah.
I love those eureka moments. That's really like such an amazing thing about podcasting, right, Paula? And you hit the nail on the head. It's amazing how there's this format now. I mean, the ongoing joke on Twitter too, right, is that like everyone has a podcast now, which like, whatever. Yeah. First of all, I think that's a great thing because it helps independent artists get their voice out. Another thing is like, wow, how fortunate are we to like have so much knowledge available to us? I mean, on one hand, you could say it's overwhelming because it's like information overload. But on the other hand, yeah, you could go on wherever you listen to podcasts, hear someone just tell you a story about something and learn something brand new in like you said, 15 minutes. I feel like we're fortunate for that. I forget if I've said it on my podcast or if I've like posted it on, Twitter, Instagram promoting it, but listen to a podcast as you brush your teeth, like whatever, as you're getting ready in the morning to take on the day, listen to a podcast. Like it doesn't have to be, it could be fun and casual. Yeah, I love that about it.
If you're enjoying the show and would like more information straight to your inbox, head over to audiovisualcultures.wordpress.com, linked in the show notes, and sign up to our mailing list. It'd be great to hear a bit more about Totally Toonular as well, because again, this is a topic quite close to my heart. I'm a huge animation fan. It's a really nice idea that you and your friends get together. You pick an animated series and you just go to town in it. There's a bit of friendly banter there as well between all of you to get it all warmed up. I just wanted to ask you as well then, what's your experience with working on that? How did that idea come about and why cartoons? What are your limitations? All that sort of stuff. Tell us all about Totally Toonular.
Yeah, I'm happy to. So it's a long story. I feel like all my stories are long stories, so pardon me, but I want to make sure to get the details in. So the creator of Totally Toonular, James, very good friend of mine, has had my back, both as a friend and creatively for a long time. You know what I mean? The kind of thing where we both want to lift each other to be like, okay, yeah, like my friend's working on this project, get involved, or like, yeah, like let me put you in contact with so-and-so and they'll help, like we help each other network and build our resume and our contacts. So he and I met years ago. And like I said, I've worked together on some projects, including an animated show that he put out and he made the first episode for, called Underpowered. People could watch the trailer for that on Troma. I mentioned Troma before, Troma's YouTube page, and on Watch Troma Now. It's their streaming service. So just a little promo there. So James created these animated shows, and the pandemic was keeping everyone in lockdown. And he sent us a text, myself, Ben, and Leo, in early February 2021. This was on my birthday, actually, I think. I'm a February baby. So it was really also nice to get that text where he was like, hey, you three, I think it was he phrased it very funny, which I love. He's like, you three have your life together. Do you want to do a podcast with me about cartoons? I think he wanted to show that like cartoons aren't, like, I think there's a bad stereotype with cartoons that's just like, I don't know, lazy people watching it in a basement or whatever all day. Not really, it's a bad stereotype, but unfortunately stereotypes do exist. And he wanted to put out there like, no, like everyone could enjoy animated shows. It could be for everyone. So I was really flattered for him to ask me that. I actually had been, just getting a little bit more personal, I had been in a creative slump. I mean, first of all, 2020, anyone that stayed productive and creative and enriched in 2020, like all the power to them, because I found that incredibly challenging. I actually had a death in the family from COVID. Yeah, thank you. My grandfather passed away. And that happened like mid 2020. And like from there, I just like lost all my creative juices. And was like, you know what? Like, I'm not going to push myself. Like, I'm just like gonna, let my mental health heal and chill out. So I had eventually gotten to working on stuff, and this was also a really nice welcome from my friend to be like, hey, like, I enjoy you. Mm-hmm. All you gotta do is show up, weekly, laugh with me about cartoons, and like, let's have a good time. Mm-hmm. So I was so on board. It was such a good way to like get back into like my creative bug, for lack of a better word. Like you said, Paula, you love animated shows. Mm-hmm. It's just to have a good laugh and to have a good time. We tend to like go a little bit off the rails and end up just talking about like we don't keep it particularly strictly animated shows the whole time. We have like a fun conversation. Just our last episode, we watched The Critic, which I highly recommend. I don't know if you've watched it. It was my first time watching it, and talked to these two gentlemen, Eli and Andrew, that have worked on a horror movie called The Reenactment. And so we talked about like their movie, and like I met them, so we were kind of like connecting and networking. Similar with you and me now, it's been a fun way to keep in contact with friends, like every week I'm like, okay, at least for like an hour or so, I know I'm gonna like, have a good laugh with my friends. And I hope when people listen, they have a good laugh too.
Yeah, it is interesting how you feel like you get to know the people that you're listening to, and then you have to realize they're not actually my friend. They don't know me. I just know them.
I know what you mean. I do that same thing with, you'll see in like as episodes of Totally Recommend This Do come out, I'm like giving shout outs. I'm like, you're doing a great job to like hosts that I don't know. But I totally get that.
That's very sweet. Being an indie podcaster, I would take anything I could get, even if I never hear about it. I'll take anything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I totally agree. And like, I saw a meme. Oh, what was it? I saw like this really cute meme of like this little girl playing a guitar and like a kitten listening to her. And I was like, it doesn't matter how big your audience is, that you like, people appreciate you, and you're doing great by just putting out art. So I totally agree. And I'm an indie podcaster too, obviously. So I'm in the same boat as you.
For sure. With Totally Toonular as well, one of the criticisms I have of my own show of Audiovisual Cultures is that I think it's too broad in a sense. And it's broad because those are my interests. I'm really interested in where different media start to slip over each other and converge. And I don't really like to gatekeep or have boundaries over those things. And I think where a lot of podcasts do really well, probably like Totally Toonular, it's very clear what that's about. And as you say, you talk about other things. You're not strict about that. But that is the core premise of the show is, right, we're going to take this animated series and we're going to go to town on that. We're going to really do all the trivia, do what we think about it. I think that's a really lovely format, and it's one of those where it's fairly endless. You're not really ever going to run out of material for that either.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we really are all over the map. The group's one rule is no anime, just because we think it's like a different, like we feel like it's another avenue of content and creation, and we feel like we could almost have another podcast just on anime. But other than that, we are all over the map as far as what we could watch and talk about. Yeah.
I was interested as well, scrolling down to see what all you've covered so far as well over the past almost year now, which is great.
Thank you.
That's a big deal, getting to your first year.
Thank you.
Because I thought, these people are going to be much younger than me. They're going to be talking about shows I've never heard of. But that's not the case. You are looking at a lot of stuff I watched when I was a kid, but you've maybe come to it in a very different way, and the internet has facilitated that very much. But you are watching stuff that I was watching as a child in the 90s, the Batman series, the old Spider-Man series, all those sorts of shows I grew up on. And, you're dealing with The Simpsons, but you've gone right back. And I was listening a bit today to the episode on Futurama as well. I'm a huge Futurama fan.
So good. Yeah.
And again, you're all much younger than me coming to it, and I was, in my teens, and, it spoke to me in different ways, and it's one of the shows where I have watched it on hard rotation at different points in my life, and I still want to go back and rewatch the whole lot again because it just gives me so much joy.
Yeah.
It is really great to hear all of you guys, and you do talk about that stuff. You talk about how you've come to something as well, which I really like.
We do. We oftentimes have almost too many ideas of what to cover because, like you said, there's so much, which we're fortunate for, and it's great. You mentioned Batman, the animated series. What a great show that was. It was my first time watching it, and I thought it was great. James is a huge Batman fan, so he was like, okay, please, like the first episode, this is my choice, so sometimes it's things like that. Like the show that I chose that I was like so gung-ho about is a Netflix show called Love, Death, and Robots. I'm not sure if you've watched that one. It is grim. It is heavy. So that might not be some people's thing. It's, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's like an anthology, right? So each episode is a different type of animation by a totally different team. And that was one that I had like pitched, to the group, like, oh, I think this is a fun one to talk about. So we do have a lot of just different ways we come up with a topic to talk about. Sometimes we'll have guests, as you saw in the episode list, and we'll say to the guest, what's the one you want to talk about? And that's how The Critic is fresh in my mind because that was our most recent conversation. That was how The Critic came about. It's wonderful because I'm introduced to things like, so what you said, like you and I are from different generations. I don't know if I would have heard of this show, The Critic, if not for Totally Toonular, and I loved it. I thought it was so funny. I think it's the producers of The Simpsons. It was like a very short-lived show, which sometimes obviously exists. Sometimes there's hidden gems out there. And like I mentioned this earlier, but there's so much content out there these days, which is on one hand wonderful. On the other hand, it's hard to figure out something that'll really make you feel good and really make your day. So Totally Toonular is great for that.
Brilliant. I would really like to hear about your experiences with acting, because you mentioned earlier, and I was reading through your Internet Movie Database page as well, you have got a fair few credits from the past few years. You've done, as you say, you've had some small roles in feature films. You've done some short films as well. And it'd be really cool to hear about your experiences with acting in film, if that's all right.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, do I have a story? Yeah, I mean, when I was a little kid, as early as I could like speak, for whatever reason, my mom watched Grease all the time, and we watched Grease all the time. That movie from the, I want to say 70s, 80s, whatever. My mom will retell the story that I was watching it, and I was like, what are they doing? Like, what do you call that? And she was like, acting. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And from there, it was all downhill from there. No, I'm kidding. It was, so from there, my mom, signed me up for acting classes nearby. Kids could act together. Really enjoyed it. And got to elementary school, middle school time, where it was like school play time. And I like never got leads roles. I always got ensemble roles. But you know what? It has helped me in my life, and I'll explain why in a second. So very humbling. I was just excited to like be a part of the production, no matter how big, how small. I eventually got like lines. It took a while. Yeah. So then throughout high school, I really more so focused on writing. I was really into journalism. I was on my high school paper and kind of I was like, you know what? I'm not getting roles. I'm not getting media roles in the plays. I'm going to focus on writing instead. Got to college and again, had that same like enthusiasm where I'm like, I just want to be a part of something. Like, I don't have to be the star of the show. I just like give me a line and I'm happy. And I do feel like that's kind of where I am today, which actually has been a humbling experience, and it has been nice for my many projects, to be honest. I don't feel the need to be the star of the show. If someone wants to put me in that spot, very nice, but I'm just happy to be a part of stuff. So the roles you'll see on my IMDb, I don't think any of them are leads. I think a lot of them are like supporting or whatever. And I'm like completely fine with that. Like I'm completely happy with that. I don't feel any sort of need to be an Oscar-winning lead woman. Again, if it happens, if I happen to win an Oscar, no big deal. I'm like, oh, well. So I think that is actually why I've had a level of success acting wise, is because I'll bring 1,000,000% to the small roles. You know, my whole life I've always been told there's no small roles, just small actors. And I feel like that's like completely applied to me. I'm gung-ho about your project. You're giving me 3 lines, but they're going to be like the best 3 lines that, you know, that like I could give you. You know, I do think I've had success for that reason. You know, another reason is because, how do I want to put this? I dedicate a lot of time to which you seem to as well, Paula, right? I dedicate a lot of time to my art. And I realized when I got to college specifically that there were times I'd rather be on a Friday night writing a screenplay than out at a party. That's not to say that I do like have a balance, but that was something I really realized about myself, which I'm sure as a creative, you feel a similar way. Like having the passion and the heart to dedicate the time to it can make a big difference too.
Yeah, that's really good to hear.
Thank you.
An interview I had with somebody back in November is an actress who is really jobbing hard at a lot of those supporting roles. Katie's been doing that for a long time, and I think, you know, was at a point where it's become exhausting, but she just works so hard at it and she puts so much effort into it, you know, and it has paid off at times as well. You know, she's been in movies with Nicolas Cage and stuff like that, you know, had scenes with Al Pacino and stuff, you know, so it's one of those things where if you keep working at that, but protect yourself, because it's a really harsh industry as well, but if you can find that balance, protecting yourself, but really putting yourself out there and working super hard, then who knows where it's going to lead you.
It's so true. I applaud anyone. You're watching a movie and there's extras on the screen walking around, and I applaud them. Because like even getting to that spot is a challenge. And not because, you know, of a lack of talent or anything. Of course, not anything like that. It's just, like you said, it's competitive. It's a harsh industry, a lot of rejection. So good for people that, you know, stick with it despite the odds. Good for them. Yeah.
It's an industry where there's a lot more roles than you would think. I've got friends who are in Belfast, and you'll have heard of Game of Thrones, right? So a lot of Game of Thrones is filmed over in Northern Ireland. You know, I had friends who were the likes of hand doubles and things, you know, so you'd have Sean Bean or Peter Dinklage or whoever. Those actors are really expensive, and if it's just going to be a part of their body and not their face that's in the shot, it's usually a double of some kind, you know. So I had a lot of friends who are registered with the extras agencies, background actors and stuff, and they got loads of work doing hand doubles on movies and TV shows and stuff. You know, there's a friend of mine who, there's a TV show that is really popular here in the UK called Line of Duty. It's a police procedural show, and you know, he is the hands of one of the main characters. He's the hands using the phone, you know, on screen of this character and stuff. It can be pretty lucrative, and it does involve acting, you know, and it's just different because you're doing it with your hands, and you think that, you know, you can't be expressive with a hand, but the way that you can deal with a phone or the way you look at a text message or something can be really telling. And that, I think that does take quite a bit of craft and talent, and you know, it's not just about turning up and saying lines, you know. So as you say, if you can be a presence while you're doing what you're doing, you know, I think that's a really cool thing to think about.
That's great. And you know, and here I go learning something new from you. That's so cool. There you go. There's another element of the industry that's, you know, maybe a little bit more accessible than being the A-list actor. And again, your friend, it's so cool. They bring their everything to something as, I say simple, and I don't mean simple, but like in a bad way, but you know, like as just looking at a phone. Like I love that. And they bring their all to that. Good for them. That's something I got to keep in mind. And I wrote down Line of Duty. I've actually never heard of that show. But I would like to check that out. I was really into Coronation Street. Do you watch that? Okay,
I don't watch it, but yeah, I know it very well.
Yeah, I like soap operas, and I wanted to like watch some soap operas from other countries.
Yeah.
So Line of Duty is something I'm gonna have to check out. Good for your friend. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a BBC show, so maybe BBC America has it.
Okay.
Probably.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
One of the credits you have is Slashing 2, The Final Beginning, and I haven't seen it, but I love the title.
Thanks. I say thanks. I didn't come up with the title, so shout out to Brandon for It
actually sounds like a Bob's Burgers episode or something.
I know what you mean. We did a Bob's Burgers episode on Totally Toonular, and there were a lot of ending, episodes. Yeah. Yeah, that was a really fun movie. That was, so like I said, Trauma Entertainment, long-running independent film company. Lloyd Kaufman, who founded Trauma, produced Slashing the Final Beginning. Really fun movie. I do recommend it. I mean, I'm biased because I'm in it, but I also recommend it. It's also like, it's fun to be a part of projects that are like also something that I would like enjoy on my own. Like I really love horror movies. I love low budget horror movies. This one's definitely like a comedy horror too. That was a lot of fun. And I do have, like I said, a couple lines in that. I have a small role, but you know what? I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm trying to think where it's streaming now. I'm not sure. It might be on Troma's streaming service, Watch Troma now. But if you ever get the opportunity to watch it, I would recommend it.
Yeah, it does sound fun. How do you end up in those roles? Do you go through the audition process? How does that work?
So lately it's really been, when I was in LA, I was doing a lot of auditions. So my friend James, who I mentioned, worked with Brandon on another movie. I forget exactly how it came about, but like my connection to James and his connection to Brandon, the director-writer, helped get me in the door. So my, advice for anyone listening is like have a good group of friends. Your friends want to help you and they want to see you like succeed and they want to have your back. And it's worth its weight in gold. There's like this stigma about Los Angeles, right? That it's a lot of people using each other and a lot of fakeness because people just want to get ahead in their careers. And something that I learned really, really early on, which I'm very fortunate someone said to me, was make your relationships transformative, not transactional. And I really thought that was good advice for like, sometimes I hate the word networking, but sometimes it is the best word to use. The wrong way to network and the right way to network. People could tell if you're being disingenuous and just want to use them to get ahead, and it really doesn't serve, the general you either. Like, make friends that like to make stuff too. My friends that I host my podcast with on Totally Toonular, they're all filmmakers too. I'm very fortunate to have like met them and to know them because they're genuine. They're smart, they're talented, and we all like have each other's backs. So if that's the one piece of advice I could really take away, it's like, be nice to your friends. Have good friends and be nice to your friends.
I think that is important advice, and what you said about being genuine as well, transformative, not transactional. That's a really good saying. I think that's brilliant. Is there anything we haven't touched on yet that you were really dying to talk about, Nicole?
I do have a question for you, Paula.
Oh, you do?
And I don't want to put you on the spot, so feel free to think about it. What are some of your favorite animated shows?
Oh.
And like I said, feel free to think. I kind of put you on the spot here, but just when you had said, that you like animated shows, I know you mentioned you grew up with Futurama. That's a great one. If there are any others that you like, I'd love to hear about them.
I have so many.
Nice. That's awesome. Many. Oh, you should come on our show sometime if you'd like. That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd really love that. Okay. I'd love that.
Oh, that's awesome.
A huge fan of Bob's Burgers as well, which has probably came
so
through.
Funny.
A show I've really appreciated, I watched it a lot last year, was Disenchantment.
Okay.
I think a lot of people have had problems with Disenchantment, but I spent a lot of time with it, and I watched All There Is, actually about 2 or 3 times. The first watch, it's quite difficult to get into, but then I watched it again because I thought there's something in this, and then I watched it a 3rd time, and I fell in love with it. Every frame of it is a work of art. It's absolutely stunning animation. The casting in it is amazing. So if anybody doesn't know about Disenchantment, it's a Matt Groening show as well. For me, because I'm such a super, super nerd, I wrote this blog post where I made an argument for how it's in the same universe as Futurama, that it's the past in Futurama. Ooh. So I drew all sort of compiled evidence for why I think that, because I'm such a nerd.
I'm a nerd too, though, and I love that. Please, if you could send that to me, Aww. I would love to read that blog post. That's really cool. I love that sort of thing.
Yeah, so that's one I've really appreciated, and I'm looking forward to part 4 of that coming out. I hope sometime in the next year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of other shows. I mean, some of the shows, as we mentioned, that you have discussed, because I think you looked at the X-Men from the 1990s as well, if I've got that right. That was one of my favourites when I was a kid.
Nice.
There's one that I think it's still on Netflix. A friend of mine pointed this out to me. Do you know, after Lord of the Rings, Elijah Wood just started doing really weird offbeat stuff?
Yeah, I do love that. Yeah, I love him. Yeah.
One of the projects he did was this animation. It's one series, it's I think 10 episodes long, and they're quite short episodes. It's called Over the Garden Wall.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's still on Netflix. It was a Cartoon Network thing. There was this, they went through this experimental phase, I think in the earlier 2000s. I think if I remember right, it's about 2006 or somewhere thereabouts. It's just an absolute delight, you know, and in a very strange way, I think there's broad strokes similarities with Spirited Away.
Oh, okay.
He's a child who something happens to him and he gets whisked off to, you know, he wakes up and he finds himself in this really strange, otherworldly, supernatural place where everything makes sense to the people in it, but to him it's all just bonkers. Yet he is quite at home in it, and it's a very coming of age thing. I won't spoil what you get to at the end, but it's really something special. I think it's really beautifully made. I've probably done my time with the likes of Family Guy and American Dad. I haven't watched them for a long time, but there was a time when I was a massive fan of those as well. And I suppose there are animations that I'm dying to see that I haven't seen yet. I've become a late in life Trekkie, and I'm dying to see Lower Decks and Prodigy. So looking forward to those at some point. Yeah, so I suppose that's a few, because I could talk all day about this.
Oh, nice! Well, we should definitely have you on our show, Totally Toonular, if you'd like. I'd love to. I mean, some of these I've seen, but you've certainly sold me on Disenchantment and Over the Garden Wall, so I'm gonna want to check those out. So cool.
I think they're worth it. I think they're really worth it.
Nice.
Brilliant. I've just really enjoyed this, Nicole. It's been so fun to chat.
Thank you, Paula. You too.
Yeah, we've gone into quite a lot of detail on a lot of your shows, and yeah, I'm just really enjoying listening to more of your stuff. I look forward to that, and I want to subscribe to your recommendation show as well, because
Thank you so much.
I think we're both podcast nerds as well as animation nerds, which is really nice.
Yes, I love it. I would love to tell your audience please subscribe to my podcasts, Totally Toonular and Totally Recommend This Dude on Spotify. Totally Recommend This Dude does have a Twitter too, so please follow that. And Fantasy Shed, the production company, has a Twitter, and please feel free to follow me on Instagram. I kind of just went to promos here, but
that was what I was going to ask you next anyway. Okay. Yeah, so that's cool. That's great. Yeah. If there's anywhere else on the interwebs that anyone might bump into you, just list them all, and we'll get them in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Yes. My Instagram is _NicoleMatarese. Yeah, I'm all over the interwebs. I'm on Matchmaker, the podcast networking website. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on, your usual Instagram, Twitter. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not cool.
Neither am I.
The non-TikTok crowd. Oh my gosh. It's, no disrespect to TikTok. It's just like I haven't been able to get into it the same way other people have. I use other interweb stuff. So yeah, I'm out there. Follow Fantasy Shed on Instagram too. I forgot to promote that. I don't run that page, so I usually forget to promote it. But my friend James, who I mentioned, he runs Fantasy Shed's Instagram, so give them a follow too.
Brilliant. Have you guys got anything coming up that you want to point people towards, entice people with? Yeah,
I would love to. By the time we're recording this, we have a episode of Totally Toonular coming out. We have them every Saturday morning. This next one, we're talking about an animated show I've never heard of before called Earthworm Jim.
Oh my goodness, I love Earthworm Jim so much.
You do? Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Couldn't get enough of that when I was a kid. I still have this song in my head. Honestly,
Oh my
I love
gosh.
Earthworm Jim. It's
That's
so much
great.
fun. You'll love it.
I have to watch more of it, admittedly, before the next episode. But that's good to know. I haven't.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's funny. I haven't heard of that one. I was like, oh, there's no way anyone's heard of this, but that's awesome.
Love it. Love it.
So that'll be a fun episode. And what's particularly fun about that episode is, so my best friend from college, Lindsay, sometimes comes in as a guest on the show. And she is actually going to be co-hosting this time around, too. It's going to be her first time hosting with us on the show, so that's going to be fun. What else do I have going on? Well, monthly, I have new episodes of Totally Recommend This Dude. The idea is that, I hope people listen to the podcasts. I recommend if they want to, in between the new episodes. So tune in for a new episode of Totally Recommend This Dude next month. I am associate producing a movie called Curse of the Were-Deer. I would love if you guys check that out. Yeah, it's another trauma adjacent movie. My co-host of Totally Toonular, Ben, is directing it. My friend Jimmy's writing it. It's going to be another fun, funny horror movie, which is like totally my cup of tea. If it's yours, check it out. It's interesting because like we're all home right now, right? I don't know. Be nice to people. That's what like if I'm putting out any last, we all need a little bit of niceness. So, not to say that anyone that's listening is not nice. Like it's just, I don't know, putting out good energy into the world.
Yeah, it never hurts to have a reminder.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Paula. Thank you for the save. Yeah. There you go.
Because even really nice people can lose the run of themselves and not be very nice. So it's good to have a reminder.
You know what? I have a funny story if I could tell it really fast, if you don't mind about that. Because I do think that, like, I lived in New York City for a bit. And I know New York City people have the reputation of being a little bit like, harsh. And I don't think it's that they're like actually mean. I think it's that there's just like so much going on and it's overwhelming and it's fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's like there's a lot. So when I moved from New York to Los Angeles, I still kind of had that like hardened, exterior. But everyone in LA is so nice. I mean, again, there's that like stereotype that they're fake, but like that has not been my case there. I think there are a lot of really nice people there. So someone was riding on like a scooter, right? Like a motorized scooter. And it was very clearly like my fault. I was just like on my phone texting and like got in their way. And they were being so nice. It's like my first week in LA. They were like, oh, excuse me. Like, just like being nice. And I was like, watch where you're going. My like New Yorker, like, it's like, watch it. And they were like, I'm sorry. Like, have a good day. And I was like, oh my God, they totally just killed me with kindness. Like, I feel so bad. I was like, I'm not in Kansas anymore. I feel so bad. So, you know what? As you said, Paula, sometimes we all just need a little reminder that it's like, it's okay to be nice. It's okay. We could do it.
That's brilliant. Nicole Matarese, it's been such a joy speaking with you for the past hour. It's been great. I hope we can continue talking and getting to know each other. It's been brilliant.
You as well, Paula. I'm going to reach out to you in the near future about being a guest on Totally Toonular if you like.
Thank you.
Awesome.